Hello and welcome. I am so excited today to have a very interesting topic about getting started with Data Cloud. This is very pivotal for a lot of organizations, and we have a wonderful person with us today who is going to help us navigate that journey of how to get started. Jillian has over 10 years of experience in consulting and architecting and is a certified data cloud consultant. So very happy to be chatting about data cloud with her today. Um, we're seeing a lot of buzz, Jillian, around Salesforce Data Cloud. What's really pushing that, and what is a major reason or reasons why business leaders should care right now?
Yeah, thanks, Corey, and hi, everyone. Um, you know, I'm not even going to spend too much time talking about this particular question because it's something that we all already know and we're hearing it all the time everywhere, is that customers have digital first expectations, right? So customers are expecting every interaction to feel like you know them completely. They don't want to feel like you're wasting their time with promotions that don't apply to them. Kind of that expectation of an Amazon level personalization, and it's affecting every industry, right? So if your organization isn't delivering on this concept, then you're probably losing customers to your competitors who are. Um, for most people, too, your customer data is scattered across many systems, your CRM, your ERP, whatever it might be. And so it makes delivering this type of personalization kind of difficult. So that's where Data Cloud comes in, is this promise of unified customer profiles. They're creating like a single comprehensive view that combines behavioral data, transactional data, data about your customers' preferences, and interaction history all into one unified profile. And where it really starts to get cool is, okay, now I have this unified profile, but what can I do with it? Data Cloud comes and enables you to do real-time activation across multiple channels, and it allows you to act on insights from that unified profile. You can trigger personalized email sequences. You could update records based on your customer interactions. Another example is maybe notifying a sales rep about a website visit from a previously cold lead. Or if someone has a service issue, uh, that sentiment of a negative experience and that context can immediately flow into your marketing automation system to pause any promotional campaigns until that issue is resolved. So this type of real-time orchestration across all of these different touch points and different systems is really what we're talking about when we want to create those seamless, intelligent customer experiences. And that's really why people are paying attention to Data Cloud right now.
That makes sense. Jillian, you've helped a lot of organizations with their data journey. When a executive CTO is evaluating Data Cloud and using it, why should they care? What metrics should they measure to see if this investment would pay off?
Yeah, I don't know that I can really prescribe recommended metrics that you should be paying attention to, because the key is to align those metrics with your business case. So it's going to be different for everybody. For instance, if your use case is around personalized marketing, you're going to want to track metrics like uplift in conversion rates, or improved customer lifetime value, things like that. Maybe you're looking to track faster campaign launches, a decrease in data deduplication, or even an uptick in service issue resolution speed. So it really depends on how you want to utilize Data Cloud. Um, but also don't underestimate, some of like the softer ROI metrics, like just overall improved customer satisfaction scores, or better net promoter scores.
Yeah, metrics and soft metrics, right? You had written a great article, which is available on our website on this topic. And in that, you had mentioned that a lot of organizations treat Data Cloud really as a plug and play tool, perhaps, which you caution might be a little dangerous if you oversimplify. What are you seeing in the market that really concerns you?
Yeah, I think I gave an example of like this iceberg analogy, right? So what's visible at the surface, above the surface of the water, is sort of small potatoes. It's easy. It is the point and click configuration of implementing Data Cloud. But the real like architecture and the work that happens underneath as the foundation is something that people often ignore and don't pay attention to. So getting stakeholder buy-in, doing all of the data prep, project planning, architectural and schema design, data governance decisions. All of these things are the foundation for making Data Cloud successful for your organization. And so I think like that misconception about complexity, um, that's kind of where it becomes confusing, is that the actual configuration of Data Cloud is really easy. There's a lot of training out there, trailheads. It's point and click almost completely for the most part. And it's easy to understand once you start getting your hands on it. But jumping in without the strategy and all of that foundation that I just talked about is what usually leads to missteps and ultimately rework for customers.
Yeah, definitely want to avoid unnecessary rework, right? So a part of that design that's so important to you, you mentioned is schema. Why would schema design matter so much?
Yeah, the schema design is it's going to have an impact on your customer profiles, your identity resolution, your downstream eventual activation, and the quality of your segments that you're using. So the schema design is really like the blueprint for how you need to and want to understand your customers. And when I use the phrase schema design in the context of Data Cloud, what I'm really talking about are uh, DMOs and DLOs. So anyone who's already started to get familiar with Data Cloud is going to know what that means. But if you aren't familiar with it, DMO is a data model object. So ultimately, this is a place where you store data that's going to be used for your calculated insights and those unified profiles that I was talking about. And then your DLOs are your data lake objects. That's where you store and ingest just your raw data. And so particularly the DMO design is really, really important. It's going to define that unified customer profile structure, um, and the way that those DMOs relate to each other is important. Taking into account what your identity resolution rules look like is also kind of part of this schema design. How you're going to structure your calculated insights are totally dependent on the design, and thinking about the segments that your business teams are going to use is going to drive the way that you design your DMOs.
That makes sense. Also, you had mentioned a specific four-phase approach that was assessment, architecture, pilot, and scale. Could you break that down a little bit for us?
Yeah, sure. So, I don't know that this is anything groundbreaking, but there's definitely, I think what I'm trying to emphasize here is the importance really of the first two for the most part. So the assessment um, is where you need to kind of audit your current state. And I want to put an emphasis on the word honest. You need to do an honest assessment of your current state. Data cloud and a data cloud implementation is going to be really reliant on the data that you're feeding it, right? And so I think a lot of customers tend to sort of paint a rosier picture of what their current state of the data in their enterprise is. Maybe they are in denial, right? And or maybe they just don't realize the importance of data governance and data quality and how it ultimately affects these type of projects. So when you're doing this type of assessment, it's likely that you're going to identify some other data governance projects that need to be completed before you start your data cloud implementation. And that's really why this step can't be ignored. It covers, I think, the technical aspects, the governance aspects, but also business process. So all three of those things, you need to have a solid understanding of your current state and what needs to potentially be adjusted so that you can estimate timeline, resource requirements, and all of those things to set realistic expectations for your data cloud implementation. And I think one of the hard parts about doing this assessment step is stakeholder alignment too, right? So a lot of times this type of project is viewed as an IT project or a data project, but you really need involvement from those business teams to drive the requirements. And then there's phase two, which is the architecture. So this is where you're going to be defining your data model, your schema that I mentioned, planning your data flows, and mapping your identity resolution logic. But what's really important here is that you try to take a future state approach to the way that you think about what you need in Data Cloud. There's a big difference between building for what you need today versus building for where you're going tomorrow. So you might start your data cloud implementation with a really simple use case like email personalization. But if you don't think through your future needs, you might end up having to rebuild your DMO structure when you want to add service case data or customer behavioral data like 6 months later. Another thing that you really need to think about here is the integration complexity considerations. Do you need real time versus batch? So maybe you don't need real time streaming data ingestion for your pilot use case that you've chosen. But if you design your architecture assuming that you're always going to work with batch processing, then you're going to hit a wall when you eventually need to implement some real-time personalization or trigger-based campaigns, things like that. And the other thing that I'll emphasize here for this architecture phase is data governance. So data governance really needs to be the foundation of how you're defining your architecture, not an afterthought. I've worked with a handful of clients over the past couple of years, and the ones who are seeing success are the ones who are putting a strong emphasis on data governance. And that data governance initiative really spans the entire enterprise most of the time. So you need to establish clear rules up front for data collection, data quality, data ownership. And then you're going to build all of that into your DMO logic, basically. It's going to support your identity resolution rules. It's going to support your activation workflows. So that data governance piece is very, very important. And then that brings us to phase 3, which is the pilot. So a pilot is just choosing a small use case to start with, right? But what's really important is choosing the right use case. I would recommend trying to identify a business case that can give you immediate value, but also something that is relatively low complexity to implement. So it's, it's what we all call a quick win. Maybe try to find something that can demonstrate like a really clear business value within 30 to 60 days, something that is measurable, and something that is relatively straightforward. So we want use cases that we can clearly explain and make visible to leadership, but something that doesn't require like a lot of complexity, like identity resolution across dozens of data sources. That would not be a good choice for your data cloud pilot. But maybe an example would be like improving your email campaign performance by creating unified behavioral segments. So instead of sending the same promotional email to everyone, you can segment based on your customer website behavior and purchase history. And that's something that is easily measurable, something that leadership and your business teams are going to understand. And then you can get feedback from them, right? That's a really important part of the pilot phase, is look at this as a learning opportunity, get feedback, and iterate. And then lastly, the scaling phase. So scaling could mean thinking about your governance challenges, maybe some identity resolution that worked really well for your initial core customer base is starting to break down because you're starting to add international data, or you're starting to add B2B context when you were originally working with B2C. So having a really clear process for onboarding new data sources, and having processes in place that's going to allow your team to easily iterate and make these changes is part of what this scaling phase is all about. And then the second part, which is probably honestly the more challenging part for most organizations, is change management considerations. So that organizational scaling. Implementing Data Cloud is going to have an effect on your end users, right? How your Salesforce users or even users in other systems are doing their day-to-day jobs. So you have to take into account training, and sometimes business process redesign to really work around these new Data Cloud capabilities that you've put in place or will be putting in place.
Thank you, Jillian, for being so thorough and kind of going through each of those phases. And change management is one of those things that we say isn't really important, but it truly is important, right? What advice would you give to a CTO or IT leader who's being asked to evaluate Data Cloud right now as a solution?
I would recommend making sure that you have a business case in mind. Assessing Data Cloud is not just all about the technology. Of course, that's important. The technology and the security behind it is part of the assessment, but it's not everything. So have a business case in mind, and allow yourself to understand how Data Cloud can solve that business case. And then, of course, I'll reemphasize assessing your current data maturity is so important. You should be doing that, if not before assessing Data Cloud, certainly in parallel. And part of that is just considering your organizational readiness. And then, also if you are evaluating Data Cloud and you're not really sure how it can add value, keep in mind, there are experienced partners like us at Apex IT who can help give you that guidance if it just feels overwhelming.
It can be a lot, right? It's like drinking through a fire hydrant. And if they decide to move forward, what are some of the things that they should watch out for?
I think that the biggest thing to try to avoid would be unrealistic timelines and really any hard deadlines. You need to have a willingness to be flexible and iterative in this type of implementation. So in addition to that, don't skip the discovery and assessment phase. Don't underestimate your governance needs. And I think that being open-minded to that iterative process of Data Cloud every day, you're going to realize that, oh my gosh, I have this other use case for this, or I have this other idea of how I could use Data Cloud. Start small, but then it's just going to start to explode, and be ready for that.
Just build layer upon layer, solid foundation. Absolutely. Do you have, as we're wrapping this up, do you have any final thoughts, a key takeaway for our audience?
Yeah, I guess just think of Data Cloud as a business transformation, not just a technology platform. It's a new way of thinking about your business processes and how you support and interact with customers. Take a strategy first approach. And if at any point it's overwhelming or you're not sure where to start or you need some guidance, we are here to help.
Thank you, Jillian. And thank you to everyone else who's watching this. Make sure to catch Apex IT on LinkedIn and next month's talk, where we're going to talk about AI, because we would be remiss if we didn't, right? The whole world is wanting to know more and implement more. And so we can see how other organizations are streamlining their processes in the AI era. So looking forward to that talk. But be sure to reach out to us about your journey right now and what you're going through, your needs. We're here to help. And thank you so much, Jillian, for shedding light on what can seem like an ominous topic, and you've just really broken it down into manageable bite size, and you're helping to enable us to move forward. So thank you for that.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks, everyone.